You're listening to the Nourish Child Podcast, episode number 69.
Welcome to the Nourish Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Hi there. Welcome to the Nourish Child Podcast. I'm Jill Castle, your host. I'm a registered dietitian and child nutrition expert and mom of 4 kids. I have a multifaceted business and do my work in a variety of settings. Not only am I the voice behind this podcast, I'm an author, program developer, speaker, private practitioner, and consultant. You can learn more about me and what I do over on my website, jillcastle.com. Today, I'm exploring how you can use powerful words to diffuse the disgruntled eater at your table. When your child comes to the table and complains about dinner, you need an effective response. When picky eaters turn up their nose, you need to say something that will keep them at the table while honoring their food preferences and avoiding too much pressure on them. And when there's a scramble to heap more on the plate or a fight to get the last bite, how will you make sure everyone is taken care of? What you say sends important messages to your child. I want to explore 3 of the most powerful statements I used with my own kids and teach to other parents. Want to know what those statements are? Stick with me and I'll tell you. Stay to the end because I've got an extra bonus for you. It's my free download to help you avoid any mistakes at mealtime with your kiddos. It's called the Mealtime Mistakes Manual, and you can get it by heading to the show notes over at jillcastle.com/069. That's 069 for episode number 69. Before I dig in, I want to point out some related episodes here on the podcast and some articles that tie in nicely to this topic we're talking about today. Listening or reading to them will further deepen your understanding and effectiveness with parenting around food. And these will all be listed in the show notes too over at jillcastle.com/069. So episode 49 on the Nourish Child podcast is called How to Serve Meals Family Style. It's a way that I love to serve meals with my own children. I teach it to lots of families. If you're not familiar with it, it really helps families make a powerful shift at the table, allowing their child to be responsible and allowed even to serve themselves and take responsibility for what they eat and how much they eat. Episode 61 is called Feeding Rules That Help Kids Eat Better. This is a really popular episode on my podcast. If you haven't listened to it or you need to listen to it again, I invite you to head over to the podcast on iTunes and scroll down to episode number 61. But this just really gives you a good blueprint for what kind of rules are the kind of rules I'm talking about, not the ones that are oppressive and full of punishment. They are ways to feed your family, to encourage them to be autonomous in their food choices and their eating, and really create more harmony at the table. And then there are 2 episodes on the topic of picky eating that I think you'll find interesting. Episode 43 is Picky Eating with Dr. Natalie Muth. She's a pediatrician and a dietitian, and we talk quite a bit about picky eating and how to recognize it and what to do about it. She's also an author on a book about picky eating, so she's a great resource. And then episode number 44 is a topic about extreme picky eating with Melanie Potok, and she and I talked about our presentation that we did a couple of years ago on the topic of ARFID, or Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. So there's some good intel over there as well. In terms of blog posts that relate to this episode, there's one called Too Much Nutrition Talk at the Table, and another article called Positive Talk with Toddlers About Food. Both of these articles tie in nicely to the topic we're going to talk about today, and that is those 3 very powerful statements that turn your unhappy eater or disgruntled eater into a calmer, more willing eater at the table. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about 3 statements you can make to calm your picky eater, your complainer, and your food snatcher at the meal table. And I want to remind you of a few things first, though, before I get going. And this is just really to help set the stage and help you understand where my brain is at when I came up with these 3 statements. So one of the things I want to say to you, and I know you've heard me say this before, as parents, we are teachers and we are guides. That's our job. That is the inherent job of a parent. And it's a tough one. It requires us to be sensitive, all-knowing, anticipatory, crafty, clever, empathetic. Sometimes we have to toe the line. Sometimes we have to say no. And sometimes we have to carry out consequences. As it relates to food and feeding, let me remind you, no child is born knowing what they should eat. It's your job to serve up nutritious food in a balanced way so they, at a minimum, see an example on the daily. No child is born knowing how to navigate food. They need to learn this over time, and you have a lot of time to teach them. 18 years, in fact. So take the lead, give them a reasonable choice, and set some expectations around food choices in your home. Don't be afraid to have conversations with your child about food and eating. They are the key to helping your child learn. But don't bring your judgments, your good food, bad food, your hang-ups, I can't eat sweets, or other complications to the conversation. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward, and keep it age-appropriate. If you're on my Monday newsletter, as a little aside here, you know I gave a little kick in the pants this month about Halloween, eating candy, and getting your own food hang-ups in check. I do this periodically. I like to give a little kick in the pants, a little reminder. It's not because I think you're bad. It's because I think I need the reminder. And so if I'm mentally there, I'm going to just give the reminder to all of us. But back to age-appropriate conversations. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, this is a fruit. It is red. It's juicy. It's sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Those are those basic conversations. And obviously that's something for a really young child. Maybe an older child, you might say something like, a balanced plate includes fruits and vegetables. Can you name a vegetable we eat at home? What veggie should our family try next? Or you could say something along the lines of, sweets and treats are yummy for sure. They have a place in your diet, just like fruit and veggies and whole grains and dairy. So statements in and of themselves can set boundaries also. Things like, you must be excused to leave the table, or the kitchen is closed. So these are very brief, to the point statements that convey not only an explanation, but they also set a boundary. So boundaries and limits let your child know how to operate within your home food system. I think boundaries are positive things. They clarify how your child should behave, and they can set expectations for behavior too. Think about it. Your child goes to school. If he's a little bit older, school is full of boundaries. Be on time. Don't talk while the teacher is talking. Raise your hand. Don't hurt others. Boundaries are set at school, and kids know what to expect. They understand the expectations of their behavior. They often understand the consequences of breaking boundaries too. For example, if you're late, you get a tardy. Too many tardies, and you might be expelled. And that might be just for high school. I don't know. I don't know if they do that in middle school and elementary school, but too many tardies in high school and you can be on probation and then you can be expelled. Interrupt the teacher and you'll be reprimanded. Hurt another student and you're going to the principal's office. I believe when kids understand what is expected of them, they rise to the occasion and fulfill that expectation. more times than not. So don't be afraid to paint the ideal picture for your child in terms of eating, food choice, and behavior at the table. So for example, I'd like to see you choose a balanced plate when we go to friends' houses. I'd like to see you use your manners at the table. I expect you to politely consider others when you want more food. So, okay, I wanted to set the stage a little bit before we get into those 3 statements, and just to carry this home a little bit more, I want you to take an inventory on your own way of speaking about food and eating to your child. And this whole inventory, self-assessment, reflection is really top of mind right now for me because I am in the yucky middle of revamping and revising my most popular ebook, which is called Try New Food. And I'm revamping and revising it to a workbook. And in the workbook, there are tons of self-reflections, questions for you to think through and journal on. And so that's where my head is right now. So I want you to answer these 2 questions, and you can do it out loud if you're driving around in the car or going for a walk or working out, or you can just answer them to yourself. But I want you to think about them. What are you saying to your child about food and eating that seems to be working right now? And the second question is there something you want or need to say, but you can't find the right words to say it? This episode of the Nourished Child podcast is brought to you by the Nourished Child Project, a program for parents. Do you feel like you somehow missed out on the basic nutrition education you need to successfully nourish your child? I bet you did. Many parents strive to nourish their child well, but find themselves faced with challenges and questions. In the Nourished Child Project, you will get my blueprint for nourishing healthy kids inside and out. Here's actually what you'll get: a food system that includes a balance of all foods, not a restrictive meal plan or diet. A feeding strategy that is proven to be effective and nurturing to children, as well as ways to build healthy habits for now and into the future. Get the Nourished Child Project today by going to www.jillcastle.com/programs. As you've answered those questions, I hope you can take just a minute and reflect on that and see, oftentimes when we pause and we self-reflect, we see where we need to go. We see where we're falling short, or we see where we're killing it, and we can then surmise what our next steps are. So as you're thinking about that, I want to give you a brief update about what's going on with me. I spent much of September and October traveling for work and pleasure. My 2 big highlights: I went to the Ryder Cup in Paris. Some of you know I'm a lover of golf and spent a lot of my time this past summer playing golf. And after the Ryder Cup was over, my husband and I hopped over to Spain to see our daughter Madeline, who is studying abroad there. She's also interning, interestingly, for a bathing suit company that happens to be owned and operated by a team of women. And the work that she is doing is on their website and their social media presence. Because this is a family-friendly show, I can't say the name of the company, but I can tell you it starts with O. The second word starts with an S, and then an H, and then the last letter is a T. They don't speak much English, so she is learning and experiencing the Spanish lifestyle, the Spanish language throughout pretty much every hour of the day. It was a huge joy to see her. I hadn't seen her since my birthday, actually, and we had a great week with her, just catching up and having good times together. What filled my heart so much is that the company that she is working with is a body positivity based company, and that their whole platform is based on you can wear any bathing suit you want to, no matter what your size or shape or weight or color or anything is. So it's very much a feminist company, and my daughter has really gotten a charge out of that. Her eyes are really opening up to the world. So that filled my heart. By the time you hear this episode, I will have just returned from the biggest nutrition professional meeting in America called the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo, where a gathering of dietitians, food companies, private practitioners, consultants, researchers, retail dietitians, grocery store, corporate, and other healthcare professionals all come together once a year to learn, rub shoulders, and see all the new food products and innovations that are entering the market in the coming year. During my time there, I got to speak a few times, lucky me, and host a booth in the marketplace where I revealed a few new things. Number one, the new book jacket for the second expanded and improved edition of Fearless Feeding, How to Raise Healthy Eaters from High Chair to High School. This book should be available for purchase from Amazon in November. And if you're on my email, you'll get a notification when it is available, if not sooner. I also showcased my Thrive Mastermind program for pediatric dietitians, some other CEU educational opportunities for dietitians, and I had a few copies of the Smart Mom's Guide to Starting Solids on hand. I shared the booth with Marianne Jacobson, who is the co-author with me of Fearless Feeding, and she also hosts the podcast called The Healthy Family. She had her books available there too, and I interviewed her. I cannot remember off the top of my head the episode number, but I interviewed her a while back on her book called How to Raise a Mindful Eater, which is a great book if you don't have it. So, okay, thanks for hanging in here with me. Let's go ahead and dig into those 3 statements that disarm your unhappy eater and calm the family table drama. So, scenario number 1, I want to paint the picture because I think you need a little context before you really can appreciate what or how to respond to it. So this first scenario, your fussy eater comes to the table and says, "I'm not hungry. I'm not eating that. Yuck, I don't like that." Does this all sound familiar? Picky eaters, fussy eaters, selective eaters. What can you say to that? Well, I have a pretty powerful statement I like quite a bit. I know it works because I teach my parents this and they tell me it works. I also know that other nutrition professionals out there use this phrase as well. So here it is. When your child comes to the table and turns up his nose to dinner, here's what you can say. You don't have to eat it, but you have to sit with us at the table. So let's unpack this a bit. It's a little bit of reverse psychology because I think a lot of kids today seem to expect that when they come to the table, they're going to be told what to eat and what not to eat. And they almost expect the nagging, the reminders, the pressure to eat. The phrase, "you don't have to eat it," is often a surprise to them. When you say it, as the parent, you should have no emotional attachment, no emotions whatsoever, no anger, no frustration. You know, there was this little book I used to read to my children. I don't remember the title of it, but I do remember one of the phrases was, "I don't care," said the bear, and I want you to have an "I don't care," said the bear, attitude when you say you don't have to eat it. Think of the release. Think of how you are actually relieving pressure by saying this phrase. You're relieving pressure on your child. You don't have to eat it. Yeah, you don't have to eat it. You don't have to eat it. But then, as you say that, you follow it up with the expectation. But you do have to sit with us at the table. Maybe your child will decide to eat something you've served, maybe not. Maybe you've released the pressure allowed him to take control of his body and his food decisions and his eating decisions, and maybe you've set an expectation of the behavior you want to see. Again, you don't have to eat it, but you do have to sit with us at the table. Remember, your job as a parent is to decide what you're serving for dinner, when it's happening, and where it's happening. Once that's done, you get to pat yourself on the back because you did your job, and you get to enjoy your own meal. Scenario 2. So we're moving on to the second powerful statement you can use when your children complain. And so the context for this scenario plays out like this. Your kids come to the table and say, "Oh, I didn't want that tonight. Wait, I wanted XYZ food." Or, "Why can't we have pizza tonight, Mom?" Yep, first thing out of their mouths is a complaint. It can be so deflating and frustrating, right? Here's what I like to say to the moans and groans from my own kids, and I'll bet you find this useful too. Sweetheart, buddy, or whatever endearing name you call your child. Start with an endearing name. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you don't like what you see, but that's the menu for tonight. You can even follow that one up with, and you don't have to eat it. Or you can say, "I'm sorry, XYZ food isn't on the menu tonight, but we can put it on the menu for next week." So when you respond this way with the "I'm sorry" or "Sweetheart, I'm sorry you don't like what you see," or "I'm sorry this food is not on the menu tonight," you're empathizing with your child. You are also clearly stating what is and isn't available for the meal. And then by following that with, "but we can put it on the menu for next week," that places an expectation for the future. So your child can look forward to that food that he really wanted at dinner time but isn't getting. He can look forward to the future and when it will be served next. So say this, and I want you to practice. Again, you can do it in the confines of your car or wherever you are. You can do it later, but say these phrases in a variety of ways because how you say these things really do matter. So let's try it. I'm going to be a little goofy here and again, try to say some of these phrases in a different way. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you don't like what you see, but that's the menu for tonight. Or, I'm sorry, chicken nuggets aren't on the menu tonight, but we can put them on the menu for next week. So you're giving your positivity, give a positive tone, and be brief. Don't launch into these long explanations why you couldn't make chicken nuggets tonight and you're so sorry. Don't dive into, complete and utter apology to your child because you are not pleasing him tonight with chicken nuggets. Just be very brief, very upfront, very positive, and just be like, sorry. I'm sorry you don't like what you see, but that's what I've got for tonight. But we can always put whatever you want on the menu for next week. So tone and manner and how you convey these sentences can really change everything. If you get mired in guilt and feeling bad that you're not giving your child what he wants exactly, that's going to send a message to your child that he can, tweak, he can pull your guilty strings or he can pull at your heartstrings and maybe he can get you to change your mind. But if you're just brief to the point and matter of fact and you're moving on with dinner, your child will move on too. Okay, moving on to scenario number 3. Your children come to the table and they are anxious to eat. They scan the offerings and start heaping food on their plates. One child takes the lion's share of the fruit bowl or the bread or the pasta, potatoes, rice, whatever. Or they hurriedly eat their food so they can get more before anyone else. You get the picture. Someone in the family is co-opting on the opportunity to eat the most food and perhaps even taking advantage of the situation. So if you're not sure about family-style meals, I mentioned this earlier. It's a way of serving food to your family, and it allows your kids to self-serve. You'll definitely want to listen to episode 49 about how to serve meals family style and why you should. You'll get that link over at the show notes at jillcastle.com/069. But the importance of listening in that episode, not only do I help you understand how to do and how to serve family style meals, we talk about a few of these common complications that can come up. So you've got these kids, or you've got this child who's anxious to eat. He sits down, he starts heaping food on his plate, or he's eating as fast as he can so he can be the first one to get second helpings. What do you say in this situation? I would say that you don't want to make a big deal about it, but you do want to set an expectation. So here's what I've said in the past, because I've got 4 kids and it's happened at my table, my family table too. So this is what I've said. Guys, there is enough food here for everyone to have some. Let's make sure everyone at the table is able to have a bit of everything that is here. So just please take some and pass it around. Or you can say, I know you love pasta. Don't worry, you can have more if you're still hungry. Let's enjoy eating a balanced meal first, then we can check in with your tummy. So let's unpack this a little bit. There is enough food here for everyone to have some. You're reassuring your child that there's plenty of food to satisfy his appetite. Let's make sure everyone at the table is able to have a bit of everything that is here. Please take some and pass it around. So you're setting an expectation. Everyone gets a chance to have a bit of everything here. What is the lesson you're conveying to your child? We consider others. I've made enough here so everyone can have some. It's about consideration. The other statement, I know you love pasta. Don't worry, you can have more if you're still hungry. Let's eat a balanced meal first, then we can check in with your tummy. You're reassuring your child. You're acknowledging that there's a food on the table that you know he loves and adores. And you're reassuring him that there is enough food for everyone, that his tummy will be satisfied, and that he can have more food if he still is hungry. Again, measure your tone, calm your manner. Don't get frustrated and emotional and blow up because your child is, grabbing at food and being rude. Just stay at the helm of parenting here. And remember, so much of this behavior is very normal for kids. And they're not trying to be bad or rude. They're just going with their first gut instinct, which is, my favorite food's on the table. I can't wait to eat it. So it's a pure response for children. It's not manipulative for the most part. But your job, again, is to set out those expectations, reassure your child, and be calm using an even tone and a calm manner. So let's recap. Number 1, your fussy eater comes to the table and complains, refuses to eat, shuts down. You say, you don't have to eat it, but you do have to sit with us at the table. Scenario number 2, your child comes to the table and complains about the menu. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you don't like what you see, but that's the menu for tonight. Or, I'm sorry pasta's not on the menu tonight, but we can put it on the menu for next week. Scenario 3, your children come to the table, they're anxious to eat, they take more than anyone else, or they speed eat so they can get more food first. There is enough food here for everyone to have some. Let's make sure everyone at the table is able to have a bit of everything that is here. Please take some and pass it around. Or, I know you love potatoes. Don't worry, you can have more if you're still hungry. Let's enjoy eating a balanced meal first, then we can check in with your tummy. These are my suggestions. You may have other phrases that have worked well for your family. I would love to hear them. And I'm also sure that other parents would like to know them too. If there is one thing that I know parents struggle with, this is one of those things. What do I say when my child is doing this or that around food? If you have a phrase or statement that has helped calm the family table drama in your house, let us all know by commenting on the show notes page over at jillcastle.com/069, or drop into my Facebook page, The Nourished Child, and share what has worked for you. If you want to help continue to grow this show, the best and most helpful way you can do so is to subscribe to the Nourished Child podcast on iTunes or Android. That's it. Go to the podcast app on your iPhone, click the search icon, and type in The Nourished Child. Click on the logo, and then click on the subscribe button to the right. It's super simple. For Android, you can find The Nourished Child on Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play Music, and almost every other opportunity out there for podcasts. And if you're already subscribed to the show, I challenge you to find a friend or pass on this podcast to somebody who might not know about it and ask them to subscribe. For more resources to help you raise a healthy child, head over to jillcastle.com to find my online learning programs, ebooks and guides, more podcast episodes, and free articles geared to help you nourish and nurture your child inside and out. As always, it's a real pleasure to share tips and strategies that help you better nourish and nurture your child. Thank you so much for listening and allowing me to be a part of your workout, your commute, your housekeeping. I'm so glad you joined me today. I know you're helping your child and yourself just by tuning in. Be sure to give that child in your life, big or small, a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.